Welcome back to our discussion about CEFTA. Today was a big day. The High Representative was in Kiev, and really it was, I think, a big delegation, a big breakthrough, and I hope there is now the time for Ukraine to join CEFTA and the Southeastern European Reform Mechanism. Why, basically? Because I think there is not the momentum still for EU potential candidate status, but there is clarity in Brussels and in the decision makers and in Ukraine that there must be some intermediary and next step. And that's what I say since 4 years. That's building an alliance with the Southeastern European states, which are pro-NATO and which are organized in this mechanism which came from the Stability Pact towards the Regional Cooperation Council, CEFTA, all the great mechanisms which were built up for Central Europe and for Southeastern Europe in the last 20 years, or in case of CEFTA already soon 30 years. And it's really amazing opportunity for Ukraine for the next stage after the first 6 years now post-Maidan, now for the next years to really move ahead and to join the Central European Free Trade Agreement. Look at the map, you see very well. There is Ukraine empty on this white field, and you see the history of CEFTA. It was very beneficial for the Central Europeans. Now for the Balkans it works very well, and then you mature out of CEFTA into the EU if you fulfill all the criteria, and that's of course a political question then, but it has matured no less than 7 members to full EU membership in 18 years, and that's quite the achievement, and I really recommend it very well, and to be a very strong Central European Free Trade Agreement. This fits in the strategy to build a powerful alliance and bilateral strategic partnerships. I have here already said which countries from the EAP to the Western Balkans: Montenegro, Georgia, Albania and Azerbaijan, North Macedonia, Armenia, and of course the most problematic country in the Balkan is Serbia, but also you see the most problematic is Belarus, and so they are fitting very well together. Bosnia, Moldova, and of course Ukraine is a very big country, and it's also best to twin it with Croatia. And please everybody recognize Kosovo, and that's my appeal. Don't make the Kosovo Republic a big issue. If you want to be allies, anyhow it would be very good to recognize Kosovo, because that's, I think, the minimum one can expect from countries who want to join NATO and EU. Good. What kind of institutions we have built up? First was CEFTA for the 90s, and then it was changed to the Balkans, and then it was also the Stability Pact after the Balkan Wars in 2000, and then came all these wonderful institutions. I will now do something nice. I will try that exactly. If you can see that, you can see then the CEFTA webpage. I will try this, cefta.int, and then you see already they have a wonderful Brussels Secretariat, very competent director, and it's a very, very good initiative. This is a Central European Free Trade Area, and you can join. It's wonderful, it is competent, it works, and it's very, very good. Good, a communication plan I should actually apply, because I love the organization anyhow so much. And then what is here the Regional Cooperation Council? That's also, I will also open now each single website for all Ukrainians to see and to learn. This is basically the network of many, many countries in Southeastern Europe, who we are, about us, participants from SEE. It's basically the Americans and the Europeans which have created this Stability Pact. The G7 was actually 99 after the Kosovo War and the Liberation War, and these are the countries. Moldova is already there, so please, Turkey is already there. It's a strategic ally of Ukraine, and all the Western world is there to support this mechanism, and it's really wonderful to be there. They also have this economic, regional economic area. Of course, it's all a bit discriminatory against Moldova, but I think this will end once Ukraine is inside, and that's actually one reason why I think Ukraine should be inside, to break this appeasement spiral of the European Union to exclude Ukraine from all this. But Ukraine is not excluded from the energy community. That was so beneficial for Ukraine in these years, and it was really a wonderful tool to be in the energy community now in the reform times after the Maidan, and this is one of the reasons why this country has really developed so well in the energy sector. because it was already in a regulatory framework with a competent secretariat in Vienna to advise, and this has helped Ukraine very much. And why? And all the mechanisms inside and all the structure, and that was really very good for Ukraine. All this you cannot invent that. It takes years to build it up. It's quite expensive, this competence level. And the same, I wrote an article with Dr. Busek once about RAI, about the regional anti-corruption institution, to join in 2017. Obviously, nobody joined it, but it's also working very well to bring the experts for anti-corruption in the countries together. And it's actually also a very good thing to learn from others, corruption risk assessment, whistleblowing, asset recovery, all these things which probably nobody really wants from the elites, but to bring the experts together and to learn mutually, because the problems are always the same: collusion, corruption, anti-competitive behavior, and how to rein in the political elite. So basically that's the story, yeah? And that's working very well, and to bring all these experts together makes a lot of sense. And it's ready, you can just join it. There's also CEF, I count that into that network. It's also the Center for Excellence in Finance. It's basically for the central banks and for the Ministry of Finance to join, to learn, on the tax authorities, to learn what to do. And the IMF is a partner for that. And they have all these wonderful ideas, for better Ministry of Finance and better central banks, and how to really bring the countries financially up to standards for joining the European Union. That's a very good one. And then we have the transport community. Transport community, obviously, also one of the biggest sectors, because that's the most expensive, railways and highways. And that's a big topic. And there's the specific Belgrade-based organization. And it's really also doing all the things which are necessary, from road, inland waterway, maritime, environment, public procurement, road safety, all these things. Then RESPA is also a wonderful thing for the Balkans and for Ukraine. RESPAWEB, it's the public administration learning for the Southeastern European countries, and I think that Ukraine is a Southeastern European country, and you can basically here see the mission and what is going on. It's in that way Moldova is still not there, but it's a really wonderful organization to train the public servants and to learn together from the issues they are facing. And many of the countries are already much more advanced than Ukraine when it comes to European administration standards. And then we have RESPAWEB, that's a relatively new one. It's for youth exchange in the Western Balkans and in SEE. And why not join? It's very good if the Ukrainians meet the Serbians meet the Moldovians, and that's really what Europe is about. And that would be very beneficial for everybody to join that organization. I think these are the most important. There's many others which are on the website of the RCC, and they are very specialized for prosecutor, police cooperation, military cooperation, small arms cooperation. The list is endless, and every sector is already regionalized and very well developed. And I really, disaster management, I made one presentation with 20 organizations that there are, and that's really, I think, the most important, because they're covering the most important for this presentation. Yeah. I made already the point, we have to join all these agencies from the European Union. This is the offer. The Balkans is already mostly attached to most of the EU regulatory agencies, but Ukraine should be an observer member in all EU agencies. Pan-European labor market, I think that's an obvious one. Then to really join the customs union in the next stage. A pan-European energy market, a pan-European digital market, a pan-European climate union, and then that's most important now for this debate, it's CEFTA and the regional economic area. Should the GUAM, the Ukraine and Azerbaijan and Moldova, form their own regional subsection? A meeting ground, the political cooperation is maybe good, but not to have the idea that now these four countries form a common market without the Balkans, different from the EU. I mean, we are only one EU, and CEFTA works, and it's much better to have more allies because you want to join the EU anyhow. So why not work together with the friends where you anyhow will be in the future in one market? So CEFTA, of course, it's not the magic thing. I had some debates on Facebook with the former trade minister, and she said that, yeah, no, we are interested more in the big markets, Japan, Canada, and so on. No, everybody is. That's, of course, Nigeria has more inhabitants than Albania. I also know that, yeah. But the question is about strategic orientation of your trade policy and what other trade organization is there. And it's only the EU, EFTA, and CEFTA. To my best knowledge, there's no other. As you're not rich enough for EFTA, and the idea is basically to join EU once, then CEFTA is the only available alternative. Good. I have also listed, for the big summit, we made a lot of effort. Nobody was listening anyhow what SMEs all need, and I have summed up all these things. But really, your SMEs really need help. If you're not even the corona crisis makes the authorities to listen, then I really have no hope anymore. But I'm always optimistic. Try to understand what might be the reason why some in Ukraine don't want to join. The story goes back to 97. In the form of my research, I found one article when Ukraine draws closer to CEFTA from Jamestown out of 97. You must really digest this. From 97, yeah, this is the debate I basically encountered when I came down 2016 to Ukraine. I thought, hey, what's happening? CEFTA worked for us in the Balkans. Why is Ukraine not in? But seemingly there was some stories I never was told, and I have no idea. It's obviously connected with European appeasement and with Ukrainian ignorance and arrogance or whatever, and then with whatever the Kosovo war or any issue I cannot really digest, but I will try to understand. Yeah, CEFTA should be with 10, 11 members. We will see what is the role of Azerbaijan and Armenia. But it's a very good framework. It works also for conflict areas. It would be perfect also for the Southern Caucasus, and it brings them simply gradually together along European standards, and it is really has helped even the most complicated conflicts we could diffuse with that one. So CEFTA first and then customs union, that's my thinking. We should actually try to have then some countries maturing to the EU customs union like we have it with Turkey. Maybe not everybody will join the EU like I wanted, but the EU customs union would already be much better than the current status quo. And so then we come to of course, also to compete with Russia for the markets of Central Asia and to offer them CEFTA membership as well. That's absolutely, why is the resistance? Yeah? And now I will go very deep into the appeasement. If you don't like to hear that the EU is about appeasement of Russia, then you will maybe switch off. But it is. That's basically appeasement of Serbia and of Russia. These are the two big hostile and aggressive powers. Serbia no longer hostile and no longer aggressive, hopefully. But, the thing is, in the past it was very much so. And so basically the idea was we were very careful and take very big consideration for the Serbian wishes. And we are very careful not to give Ukraine any kind of encouragement to join the European Union, and CEFTA could be interpreted like that. And for Moldova, that was in some views already a mistake to allow it in CEFTA and RCC. So better, have it a complete depopulation of a buffer zone than to have Russia angry on the European Union, some say. It's of course totally wrong, and we really have to make, on the contrary, a fast-track enlargement and make sure that Ukraine is joining CEFTA. So there is also, the cost of integration, but now we have anyhow this corona budgetary explosion. So when it's now the time, then it's really the time now. The fear of Russian anger, that's certainly true, but Russia has already started 2 wars in the European neighborhood, in the European partnership countries. And so then there is a lot of, can hardly get worse, I think so. So then it's of course some reluctance against enlargement, Ukraine, all this myth that it's super corrupt, as if there would be any difference with the Balkans 10 years ago. Obviously, the work in the Balkans with the institution has now developed and it's getting better, but it's still very problematic. Yeah? And so, of course, Russia has a lot of leverage into the EU with this traditional Austrian, Hungarian energy links and buys a lot of support from Paris to Italy. That's deeply problematic. It's hard to change. And then my appeal, what about European values, principles, morality, and the rights of Europeans? From Copenhagen to Thessaloniki, who can really reject Ukraine? It's totally wrong. And I hope that there will be some time for morality again. Then it's appeasement, Munich Chamberlain. I don't want to go too deep into the comparison with the Second World War. We are not going to go into any kind of disasters, but the mentality of appeasement is very, very strong. And you can see it. Everybody shies away from the conflicts in Belarus, in Ukraine. And the best thing not to hear of it. But obviously that's impossible. You have to impose yourself on the Brussels elite basically by being more pro-European than them. Tell them about the values. Vucic actually is very good. He knows all this kind of value discourse very well, and he imposes them himself on the bad conscience of the Europeans very well. That you can learn from him. And obviously what I will say now is also about the euro very much, but you see then here still different appeasement. We had a little bit of bad conscience because of the Serbs always telling us it was unfair to have the liberation of Kosovo. And then was, of course, the big division of Iraq war, Orange Ukraine, and the West, we really didn't know really very much what to do with Ukraine. And also the European politicians were very busy with enlargement, first phase. And so there was the reason for that, yeah. Okay, we have come up now much better, with Montenegro. And in the last 7 years, it was 6 years since the Ukraine war, European enlargement has been actually, the support mechanisms, let's say, for the Balkans have actually increased. That was really very good. So I'm optimistic always, yeah. Not to get too long, but, just to outline, even, in the ERP, you can do amazing progress like Georgia has shown. So I say yes, also the mechanisms outside the regional economic area can be quite successful if you have the right leadership and the right strategy and the right ideology. But then it's, of course, very far away. Ukraine still on 126, yeah, of this Transparency International Index. But you see, Georgia is the proof it can be done. But also with less success, but also quite good. Montenegro is on 66, and we really have a lot of progress also on this very complicated issue of corruption. Why Montenegro? Because already it has given up its monetary policy and independence by adopting the euro, and that's of course a major item of leverage and of influence and of collusion and corruption in the banking sector. Once you have the euro, you can manipulate much less. That's why I'm also one of the reasons why I say so much. Back to the euro, adopt the euro, really make sure that you are not, you cannot join automatically by yourself the eurozone, but you can end your own currency, give it up. Nobody needs it. It's a disaster anyhow, and you adopt the euro, or first pack it and then adopt it. Yeah, I see all the 6 countries in ERP, all the currencies complete disaster. Still the best is Georgia, but all of them have been a complete disaster. And the worst, of course, Belarus, by far the worst currency in Europe ever in the post-Cold War history. I mean, maybe not in the history of Europe, because there were also the German mark of 22, but that is really a record. The Serbian dinar and the Belarusian ruble, they compete for the worst currency in European post-Cold War history. The hryvnia is probably the 3rd position when it comes to the worst currencies, and it has really a dramatic decline and a loss of prosperity, which is hard to digest for the consumers and the savers. I'm very sorry. I was in many events in Ukraine when I was living there, where they were crying, the savers and small SMEs, which have lost all their savings and all their investments in the banking crisis of 2014-15, and they have already lost a lot in 2008, and it is, in a summary, a complete disaster. So when I saw about the Lithuanians, it might be a role model. I remind they have from the beginning pegged the currency to the dollar and then changed to the euro and are already in the eurozone. I think there is no more country which is similar to Lithuania than Ukraine. The history and the traditions and the culture, it's quite similar. Just they did a very good policy and Ukraine did a very wrong policy. Yeah? Don't know exactly why that happened. Yeah, and there must be a stronger pro-Western trajectory in Lithuania, but this is the right role model when it comes to the currency peg, and then adopt and join the eurozone. The Bulgarians had done a similar policy, but also I remind it's also Bosnia, also Macedonia, which have the peg policy, and it's very good. Oh, that's a different one, but anyhow, you will see in the next 5 years there will be a completely change of the currency policy to the better in Eastern Europe, and all these examples which everybody says, Poland is also not in Eurozone, we don't need the euro, we do flexible currency. You will see it will disappear because the patience is running very thin with this kind of extravaganzas of the Orbans and others, and it's really very wrong. We did so much for them and they fall in our back now and make deals with Russia. It's totally wrong. And not Poland, to be clear, it's I talk about Hungary, but all of them, they will adopt the euro and join eurozone. In that case, also Romania by 2024. It's my bet. All of them will be in the European currency union, and of course that will also transform the whole perception of the euro in Eastern Europe. I say, remind everybody, it's the Copenhagen criteria, you fulfill them, you are a peaceful country, you cannot do anything that you were attacked, yeah? You shouldn't be punished for Russian aggression, please allow EU potential candidate status. This is what Copenhagen decided. Thessaloniki, we had courage back then, it was the right thing, promised the Balkans the EU accession, and this was really very good, yeah? And my last slide on this little effort, I will not get tired to remind everybody, we have just supported Ukraine in the last 6 years with 15 billion euros in grants and loans. Not as much, when you see, of course, Serbia got much more, true. And anyhow, it's unbelievable how much now the member states are getting inside the Eurozone, especially Spain. And this is a tremendous kind of solidarity, which there is. And I call on all, it works in all directions. You receive so much solidarity, it's also good to give it back. The Cypriots run away and don't want to support our Belarus politics. You Ukrainians were always so keen that we all do united the Minsk sanctions. And obviously that is also true for Macedonia, Serbia and for Bosnia, which we all highly subsidize. And also to be sure that the Kosovo recognition, it's not a question, then Putin will say that this is the same like Crimea. No, so what? Whatever he says. He's the enemy or not? Yeah? Do you care for our opinions or for his opinion? Yeah? So ultimately, most people in Ukraine will not really care so much. If it's about pan-Slavic solidarity, please then join the Russians, okay? The thing is, please recognize Kosovo, show that you are a Western ally, and this will be my call for weeks and weeks and months, because when you get the Spanish, 21.3 only on the one budget line, there can be also some attachment of solidarity asked from them. So that's my little calling, I call obviously to join the Southeastern European mechanism. It's the best thing to do. And it has actually, just to remind you, that 3 countries are already in the European Union. When you look at it, just to make sure, not in the European Union, but you can say that as well. With Slovenia, Croatia, Romania, Bulgaria, I think quite a good success of the whole work. But also we have already 3 members in NATO. Do not forget that. It's Montenegro, North Macedonia and Albania already in NATO. That's a big achievement. That's also Ukrainian strategic goal. And I will not go into everything about the Adriatic Charter. You have seen more with this video already. But that's the way. Build alliance with the countries which you will be in the future anyhow member. And Ukraine is a little bit more east than in the southeast. But when you see it from Poland, it's definitely in the southeast. And when you look at the history of the confrontation from Turkey, from Russia, from Poland, from Austria, and from Germany, it was always, one region, one common struggle between the Ottoman Empire and the Austrian Habsburg Empire and the Romanov Empire, and there is a lot of common history, and there is also clearly a common future in NATO and EU. And we only have one NATO, we only have one EU. So if we want to join this EU and this NATO, then please build an alliance with the others who also want to do the same, because you will sit on the same table with them in Brussels, in the NATO headquarters, and in the EU Council and Parliament. So it's also very good to have friends already now in these difficult beginnings. Good. Thanks a lot. Please join CEFTA and RCC.